Anatomical Gangster. This is the podcast where I work to dissect movement, healing, and paradigm shifting ideas with my guests. I'm your host, Sue Hitzman, and today I'm thrilled to welcome my dear friend and colleague, Jill Miller. She is a pioneer in self-care fitness. She's also the co-founder of Tune Up Fitness Worldwide and the brilliant mind behind Yoga Tune Up. She's also the author of two incredible books, The Role Model, and one of my absolute favorites on my bookshelf, Body by Breath. She has over 30 years of deep study in anatomy, movement, and she has forged critical connections between fitness, yoga, massage, athletics, and even pain management. People know her as the teacher's teacher. She has trained thousands of educators, clinicians, and manual therapists worldwide, and her groundbreaking work in fascia continues to shape the future of wellness. Today, we are diving into how fascia informs her work, her vision for its evolution, and what she's going to be presenting at the 7th International Fascia Research Congress happening this August 10th to the 14th in New Orleans. Are you coming to the event? I will be there presenting a pre-conference melt method workshop, 2 sessions in the body of the Congress. You will not want to miss this event. It is going to be the best one yet. So make sure you register at frscongress.org today. Thanks again for joining me on the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and comment. Share this one with your friends and colleagues. And I hope you enjoy this conversation with Jill Miller. Jill, thank you so much for coming on Anatomical Gangster. I've been looking forward to this conversation. Any conversation with you is a great conversation. So
it's
great
my
to see
friend
you.
Sue. I know, if only people tapped into our other conversations.
We do. Jill and I have been colleagues for decades now, and watching the evolution of this industry and against these incredible contributions that you have, I definitely want to talk about this dense and extremely important book, Body by Breath. It is one of my absolute favorites on my bookshelf. I really think it is an absolute must read for anyone who wants to understand their bodies. I mean, forget about the clinicians, just human beings need to read the science and the practice of physical and emotional resilience. I mean, people are needing it desperately in 2025.
Thank you, Sue.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, you and I, we go so far back, and this was the book I always wanted to write. Like, my first book was The Role Model, but this was the book that was it's my why. It really is how I regulate myself. It's how I manage pain. It's how I manage my emotional drama and stress. And the approach has really been, I think, a gift to my students, and I can see that it's a contribution for a lot of different interdisciplinary professions.
Yeah, this definitely is a book that I think is extremely unique, very pioneering. The images are so clear, and it is just filled with so much rich information. I've incorporated some of what you have in some of my practice. So just first, thank you for writing such a monumental book. I hope that people are reading this book, and this is a big hit around the world. It's really incredible.
Well, I just received the Polish translation of the book. So it's my first translation, or it's the first foreign translation. And it's such a, like, I honestly, like, it's right here. I haven't opened it because I want to be in a place where I'm in a joy-filled space and I'm ready to celebrate. And frankly, we've had a lot of medical stuff at our house. And so I'm just waiting for some of that to clear up so that I can be with my kids without slings, without braces, and just like go crazy when I open it.
Yeah, I mean, they're lucky to have a mom like you. I saw on social that Asher injured his shoulder, and that's so tough because he's so young and he's just a little angel. I just love both of your kids, but
yeah, I mean, just because I'm in the self-care business and I know a lot about recovery and healing doesn't mean that my kids aren't going to have freak accidents pretty much every other week.
that's right. That's what all kids do, falling out of trees, running around and falling on their face. I mean, we all did at some point, right? This is what it is to be a child. At least when they fall, they bounce right back into it. We should all learn from that as we age, that
Those
resilience.
stem cells, my God, they
Yeah,
heal so fast. It's
it's
crazy.
incredible.
I
Yeah,
won't
when
go
you really
far, but
see it. Yes,
Mhm.
exactly. Well, in speaking of fibroblasts, let's talk about this. What sparked your deep dive into fascia and how has it transformed and shaped your work from your beginnings of yoga and movement to now all of these other aspects that you do with your work?
I think there are a small handful of things that I can connect the dots on why fascia sparked my deep interest. One was my father's a medical doctor. He's an infectious disease doctor. And so I grew up looking at his medical textbooks, looking at the journals that he would get from the Journal of American Medical Association and then the infectious disease journals. And I was always fascinated with the anatomy illustrations, the anatomy images, and especially pictures of microscopic images and disease. I just loved, give me a picture of a virus, and I'm like, oh my goodness. To me, that was like looking at the planets in outer space. I just loved anatomical imagery. So I think that seasoned me for yeah, a future that I didn't anticipate would include having to look into the body in the ways that I have. The second stream that fed into this was my first and primary yoga teacher. His name is Glenn Black. And Glenn was an orthopedic medical massage therapist. And he was the protege of a physical therapist from the Ukraine named Shmuel Tots, who was a PT who focused his work, he called it body tuning. And anyway, what Glenn would always teach us manual work while he was teaching us yoga practices. So I learned to do a lot of massage based applications just on the fly in his classroom, but he often talked about fascia. And so I'm 19 years old, 21 while I'm studying with him in my, those are my early years of studying with him. It's been a lifelong study. But that was something that he frequently talked about. And I don't know whether he got his information from Shmuel or whether it was from working with other professions that, of course, he was allied with, chiropractors or other massage therapists or rolfers. I tend to think there probably were a lot of rolfers in his world. And so fascia was obviously something that was really key in that space. And so he brought that into our yoga classes, our yoga classroom when I was very young. So I was a teenager, late teenager, getting this download from him. And then I was also, oh my goodness, I also had studied my first form of massage. I started studying when I was 17. I went to college early and I started studying shiatsu massage. I went to an open house and I found, I was a full-time college student, but I was in deep trouble psychologically. I was struggling with bulimia, bulimia nervosa, and I was looking for healing anywhere I could get it. And this massage open house at a shiatsu center was a massive pivot point for me in terms of the experience of embodiment. I had an embodiment experience there that was transcendental that, I just get frisson all over my body when I recall that moment of connectivity. And so studying the meridian system, which I did for the next couple of years, I would do work study for this shiatsu school. I felt that there were probably some parallels with the Chinese or the Japanese medical model of meridians and some of the fascia information I had gleaned here or there. And then it started all come together when I finally enrolled in a yoga teacher training, like, I don't know, 10 years, 14 years after that. It was a long time before I actually did a formal yoga teacher training, but the anatomy teacher in that yoga teacher training, her name was Ellen Heed, and she was obsessed with fascia. And then that was like the total massive deep dive. And then I remember I met you when I was, this is the longest story. What sparked your deep dive
You
into
could
fascia?
get it because I think this is important.
There were so many sparks
Yeah.
that ended up creating the, explosion of of knowledge that I've been able to dig into. And so you were a key part of that. So what happened was I was teaching this workshop called Core Integration, a Total Abdominal Awakening,
I
which
remember.
Yeah.
Was awesome, by the way. I remember you teaching, and Whitney Chapman was when she's like, you got to meet Jill. Like, she's a counterpart for you. And I took your class. I was like, I just love her, and you're my people. Like, I just knew, I was like, this is going to be a great friendship and a great collaborative human being. I just love this person. I loved everything that you talked about.
But Sue, I'm still trying to carbon date it. Was this like 2004 or
No,
2005 or 2006?
it was probably 2006 or to 8. It was probably a little bit later because you had already had this, whole technique with the, using towels on the abdomen. I don't recall using one of my favorite tools, by the way, the Gorgeous Ball. Um, I don't think that you had that ball at the time. So I
No,
think it
I
was
think, yep.
probably like, yeah, 6, 7, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so almost 20 years ago, that's the
Yeah.
point.
Don't
Okay,
rub it in.
this is like generational. Like we
Yeah.
are so old now. Okay, so I was doing this experiment and I was running around. My mother worked for JetBlue. Oh, I'm giving away all this backstory. My mother worked for JetBlue, and so I actually got to fly for free. So I could use these buddy passes that my mom had. So I was able to like tell friends in New York, hey, I can come out here and teach a workshop for you, and there's no travel cost, and I'll just stay on my friend's couch. And so I must have somehow made this arrangement with Whitney at Sports Club LA.
Yeah.
And I taught this workshop, Core Integration, a Total Abdominal Awakening. And I had people rolling up hand towels because I hadn't yet found this rubber ball, which, by the way, is like so much better than a towel. But if you don't have
So
a
much better.
ball, use a towel. Like you can use anything that's soft and gushy and grippy, and we can talk about that. Um, and so I taught this workshop where we were exploring the interconnectivity of the gut and the diaphragm. And there's this, obviously this very wonderful and complex fascial link. And so I'm talking about breathing and the guts and all the things that I talk about in Body by Breath and embodiment. And afterwards, you come up to me. I'll never forget this sentence. You say, how do you know what you know? You said, how do you know what you know? And then you're like, you're teaching everything that my mentor Gil Headley says, and then you just start talking about Gil and this and like it was like grrr, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've come to all of this from this whole other bucket of
Mhm.
training and research and embodiment. And then you were like, and the Fascia Congress, and all of a sudden, you, Sue, opened this huge vault for me into this entire world that was already existing that I had just pieced together experientially and through loose leads. So
Yeah.
you made those leads viable for me. And so I just like, I'm giving you like high fives, hugs, and
Thanks.
the eternal sisterhood. And it's been that way for us ever since.
Yes. I mean, I remember that. I remember even flying out to California and being like, I need to sit down with you and tell you about who you need to talk to and what research you need to incorporate into this because you're like already eons ahead of anybody else. So, like, check this out. And the Fascia Research Congress, we had just had I think that was it, we had just had the 2007 International Fascia Research Congress right around when I had met Jill. And I'm just like, you got to get in on this. Like, you got to know these people. And I've seen you evolve and transform such an industry that is so desperately in need of really decoding fascia, and that's the yoga community. I mean, that was really a foundation from you. I come from a fitness background, and so this like emergence, I think you've really amplified fascia in the entire yoga community worldwide. And kudos to like everything that you've brought to it. And Jill's also mentioning the Fascia Research Congress. And I had mentioned in the introduction, we have the 7th International Fascia Research Congress coming up in New Orleans, August 10th to the 14th. And Jill and I are both going to be there. You're doing a morning pre-con on Saturday. I've got the afternoon pre-con. So I want you to share a little glimpse into what you're going to be presenting at the Fascia Research Congress, not just that pre-con, but what you're doing in the body of the conference.
Okay. Thank you for that. Um, so my first Fascia Congress was 2012, and I presented a poster there, and never in a million years like thought I'd be a presenter.
Was
at the
that DC? Wasn't that
No,
DC?
wait, 2000, no, wait a minute. 2000, help me out here. No, it was in British Columbia. So was that 2009?
For- the- I can't remember.
I, oh my gosh.
I'm in menopause. I can't remember these things, Jill. Don't ask questions like that to me. I
Well,
don't know.
I
But
literally am
yes, I do
creating,
remember you had a poster. Yes.
I'm creating a PowerPoint and it has a picture from that Congress. I could go look it up right now while we're here. Okay, so anyway, yeah, I had a poster. I never in a million years thought I would get accepted to present a poster. Like that was like, what? These people, like, they really are understanding what I'm talking about. That was revelatory, validating, empowering. And I can't believe that now finally this year I pitched some presentations. I was having too many children and so caught up with anything else. I never pitched again. But this year I pitched a couple of different things and I was invited to do the pre-con and then also to present a 20-minute embodiment workshop or hands-on. So I'm in the, I'd have to actually look up in the schedule. I know Gil Headley is the host of my section, but it is around the nervous system. So I'm going to be presenting on some diaphragm deconstruction work that includes these gorgeous balls. And we're going to be going into an application that is delicious for the thoracolumbar aponeurosis, thoracolumbar fascia, and helping people to decompress their lumbar spine, disintegrate pains known or unknown that may be connected in this area, as well as create an amplification of the movements of respiration. You can feel them echoing very, very clearly in your body when you're using the tools as I'm going to be sharing them. So it's just a very, very simple setup. And there are so many different positive side effects and then little educational tidbits that I'm going to be sharing with people with this very simple application that people can do for themselves or for their clients or in groups, wherever.
I love this. I can't even wait to take your event because I know that you're actually teaching at points where I can come and take the event. And I feel, I've been part of the Fascia Research Society from before it was called the Fascia Research Society. And when Tom Findlay said, hey, we have to get researchers together to share their work, I do remember being on this first call and Tom Myers saying, maybe I misunderstood you. You want researchers to share their unpublished work? I mean, really? And we have, and for years now, bringing all of this new research, either from collegiate studies, these theories that are coming up, it really is not an event to miss. If you are curious about the inner workings of the human body, anybody who, you could be in the general public and come and take these events and these sessions. But if you're a clinician, a body worker, a doctor, and anybody in the industry of well-being and healthcare, you should be at this conference. It is going to transform how you view aging, longevity, and just the human existence. I think it's going to be amazing.
And the benefits of self-stimulation. I mean, you and I, because we are both soft tool advocates and hands-off therapists for, or, propagating hands-off therapies so that people can do this work themselves. I mean, the results that you get, the results that I get by people taking charge of their own health, movement, pain reduction, postural integrity. And that we get to attend these sessions where we learn more about the cell dynamics and the interactions with cytokines and the immune system and the psychological ramifications. I mean, it's just been an endless well for my own work, and I know for your work as well, to also validate, substantiate, and then to wonder, and then to intermix, and to push a little bit further. So I can't wait to be there. The morning, the pre-con is going to be a much longer exploration of body by breath, and lots of different positions and lots of different tool interactions that the participants get to explore. And then I'll have a little bit of lecture in there. I have 3 hours, so I'll have a chance to break down some of the programming model and why what I'm doing is so helpful for creating a recovery response or a therapeutic relaxation response in people and bodies, and then what paradoxical responses people might also anticipate.
Absolutely, absolutely. And something that Jill mentioned is, I think both of us take um, more of a softer approach. And the Fascia Research Congress, actually the originators were Rolfers. They were people who came from a concept of this more heavy compression technique. But again, there's sort of a bridged gap because also Feldenkrais, a lot of them were on these two, this subtle body side and then this heavy compression. And I think what we're really evolving to, I think science is really catching up to this idea that if you have pain, more often than not, the stress response is so high that this is actually causing tissue adaptations. It can cause an increase in the fascial tone. And what they're finding actually in people who are depressed or have anxiety is that not only is the fascia more stiffened, it's actually dampened. So I always kind of equate that to like a sponge that you've used far, far, far too long, and it just doesn't have the ability to absorb. So that dampness is, I think, fascinating. And there's also all of this new research now on hormone dysregulation in women. They're seeing, because of atomic force microscopy and looking at the microscopic components of fascia, we now understand so much more about hormone dysregulation, metabolism, the different shape of superficial fascia in men and women, and why women have cellulite, and how this is actually a metabolic issue more than it's a cosmetic problem. So there is an evolution that I think the community of the fascial researchers are really bringing to light, and people like Jill and myself and many others are taking this science and bringing it into practical application, which is what bridges the gap between science and actually integrating it into your life, so that you realize how easy it can be to transform how you feel in your body. I always say we're trying to change your mind about your body state rather than saying, oh, my body is failing me. Why is my body doing this to me? And I'm like, I actually think it's your mind that's causing the problem. So let's rethink this whole dynamic. And I think that this is a paradigm in the fitness industry. So how would you see fascia transforming our approach to health, wellness, and even longevity?
One of the concepts I tackle in Body by Breath is that, mental health is a body-wide experience. And so how do we get there? How is it a body-wide experience? And so much of what you just said in your lead into the question already examine that, talking about the changes in fascial tone throughout the body due to stress, accumulated stress, the alterations of fibroblasts due to the chronic exposure of cortisol, and that stiffening, that dampening, the cross-linking. So these things are not, they're never separate. They never were separate. But I think when I express to people, like in Body by Breath, I also talk about, breathing is not a nose to lungs experience. It's a body-wide blast radius. And so we need to talk about the systems that are involved with respiration. And I think that fascia gives us a really great fabric, or a system, or a organ, however we're going to define it now, to understand the body-wide ramifications of both our self-belief as well as the movements of breath throughout every, echoing into every cell of the body. So what was your question?
Well, where do you see, because even with Body by Breath, I'd almost go into that a little bit more, because again, Body by Breath, I think this is just one of these books that comes out and you just think, this is a lifetime. And before you were born, lifetimes, information that you have infused into your mind and somehow got it on a piece of paper, many pages. This is the most dense, heavy book that I have on my bookshelf. And I just, again, I think that there's just so many facets of this. So again, like when you think about fascia, how it's transforming our approach to health and wellness, and also what is the core message that you're hoping that people get from Body by Breath? Because as much as Body by Breath, you would assume, oh, it's a breathing book, but no, this thing is spanning your life. It's spanning existence. So talk a little bit about that, the message of the book, what you hope readers will get out of it, and how this is going to transform our approach to health and wellness.
So Body by Breath is a very, even though it's half of it is explains the physiology of what the practices are. So it's two parts. There's uh, a lot of anatomy and physiology up front, and then the second part of the book is all application and practical. And I talk about really 4 tools that I use and that we use in order to help you tap into a parasympathetic aspect of your autonomic nervous system. So let me back up just a moment. Our bodies are really, really skilled and hardwired for sympathetic reactivity. We're really built for that. We can go to 0 to 60 very, very quickly and skillfully and make waves and get out of dodge. But going from 60 to 0 is not as simple process for us. And you just don't go from 60 to 0 quickly. Said differently, we have a lot more tolerance capacity for sympathetic overdrive, and we don't typically have as much tolerance for parasympathetic endurance, right? We can run a marathon for 26.2 miles, but imagine asking people to meditate for 26.2-mile duration. I mean, it's not an exact analogy.
Not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen. And maybe it's not, it's not necessary, but I think there are probably more meditation averse people than there are workout averse people. Did I say that right? So when we start to enter into parasympathetic states, we start to deploy our feeling body, whether that's feeling our physical pain or whether that's feeling our emotional turmoil. And we don't want to face that. And so we can just keep covering it with more doings, with more activities, with more sympathetic goings-ons and on and ons. And so what this book does is it really, I think, helps people, it rocks them gently into parasympathetic practices that are tolerable, that start to expand their tolerance capacity for being able to endure a parasympathetic state. Now, why is that good? Why is that good for you? Well, that's because that's where recovery happens. That's where healing happens. That's where injury repair happens. That's where sleep happens. That's where digestion happens. That's where orgasm happens. So these are all things that are a good thing and that truly are about resilience. Resilience isn't like, can I just keep lifting more? Can I just keep doing more? Can I just keep producing more? You have to be able to skillfully refill the tank so that you have that bounce ability to be able to go from 0 to 60 and then 60 to 0 without crashing.
Yeah, I mean, this is so big what Jill is talking about, because I think this is the problem that a lot of my clients come in with. Is I always kind of think of it like a seesaw. You've got the stress and the repair. And in a waking state, from the moment that you wake up to the moment that you go to sleep, your stress response is on. Your sympathetic system comes on. The problem with, I think, today's day and age is just what she's saying. It's like your foot is always on the gas, even when your car's in neutral and you're not really doing anything. You're still in the state. So after a while, your nervous system, the autonomic aspects of regulation, actually think that's the neutral place. And that's a problem, because when you try to fall asleep, you can't. You're getting up in the middle of the night multiple times to go to the bathroom. You're waking up exhausted, and it's just a matter of time where actually your parasympathetic or rest and repair system actually can't come back. It doesn't at night in that sleeping state bring you back to level. And for a lot of people, this is the problem. And so when they try to meditate or they focus on breathing, I ask people, like in Melt, we do a 3D breath breakdown. I'm asking them 9 whopping times, just 9 times, to focus on inhaling. That's it. And in the second breath, I will guarantee that 90% of the people are thinking about, did I leave the water on in the pool? Oh gosh, that guy, and he cut me off. And my husband, your brain is just chit-chattering away. You're having 75,000 conversations in your mind, and it's all with your internal voice, and we can't quiet down. And I think that is the disruption that many people are facing who have endocrine problems. They have Hashimoto's, all of these things that are altering our endocrine balance, and fascia is just one gigantic endocrine system, if you think about it that way, we are the cause of it, and we don't realize that our environment is actually playing a mastery role in how we regulate balance and calm and stability, right?
Yeah. So what we do in the book and in the practices is I embrace that, and I try to encourage people to, there's nothing to like push down, there's nothing to squelch. It's we invite things in a sense of play. So there are many different ways of stimulating the body. Stillness is not the cherry on top. Like stillness type of practices can be a totally emerge threat responses in people and defenses. And I go over this in the behavior of the vagus nerve under a lens called the polyvagal theory by Dr. Stephen Porges. And by the way, Dr. Stephen Porges, wonderful, amazing researcher, and he's going to be one of the keynote speakers at the Fascia Research Congress. So I cannot wait to hear him in person again. I've had the pleasure of presenting at a conference where he was before. He's just amazing. But when we are confronted with stillness, that really is when these symptoms can arise, right? These stress symptoms can arise. And so for a lot of the people that I work with, breathing in and of itself induces anxiety. And so it's like, oh, great. If I just tell someone, take a deep breath, that could be really problematic for people. And so in Body by Breath, I just have all these other vagal entry points for them. And that includes position, includes palpation, it includes using the floor and very slow motion movements in different ways. And it also includes inserting these soft, pliable balls into the body in different ways so that you're getting biofeedback. You're also altering stretch and stress and pressure responses. So there are other things that we can play with to alter, heart rate and involuntary breath rate that ultimately can help people finally engage with their breath in a non-anxious way. It's really, to me, it's really, really, it's very exciting. It's very revelatory. And when I work with people one-on-one, I also get to have a dialogue with them, and we get to really unravel some of their beliefs about their long-held beliefs about their worthiness of taking a break,
Yeah.
of getting rest, of getting true rest.
Yes, this is a huge moment here. I always ask people, where are you in your self practice? And what I mean by that is your self talk, your self judgment, your self acceptance, your self love. Where are you in that practice of love thyself, know thyself, trust thyself? Because oftentimes we are so far removed from putting ourselves as an important person in the experience of life. Our, kids, our siblings, our parents, our children, our husbands, wives, right? The pets, right? That we're like the last on the totem pole. So I actually see a lot of women also who end up having a lot of hormonal dysregulation in their 30s and 40s that I wouldn't even think would happen until the menopausal state. But I think that a lot of this ignition with perimenopause is also exacerbated by the inability to come back into the self. So I think this is super pioneering work. And actually, at the beginning of this, we had mentioned Jill has these two gorgeous children, Asher and Lila, and the two of them are playing sports and gymnastics, and you are managing your personal life and your business. So talk a little bit about your personal journey as a mom and influencing your approach to teaching and healing. I mean, I know that the two of them have got to be incredible teachers for you, right?
Okay, well, first of all, Sue did send some questions ahead, and now I'm going to actually look at the question, which is about balancing career and family life. And I just want to tell you that that is not a possibility. It is so dynamic every single day. The number of times I've had to abandon my own work because my son is struck with a migraine at school, and then running to the doctor, or for allergy shots, he's deadly allergic to venom. So it's very, very hard for me to know a predictable day. So I had to give up really early that I'm going to be living a life of competing interests, and that's okay. So that is a place I have to work at acceptance a lot, especially as a control freak, because of course, I'm a control freak. Like, how else, like with my history. And so I just have to keep reminding myself, my heart is here, here, and here. It's all a tug of war, and that's okay. So that I don't feel like I'm disappointing everybody, including myself, all of the time. Now, I'm saying this out loud, and inside, believe me, in moments where I get to lay down on my mat here, get on my two gorgeous balls, which act as amplifiers for inner state, they tell me, Jill, you have not been giving any time to you. You have not refilled your tank. Listen to you talking about other people refilling your tank. Here, let me hug you. And that's the beauty of the work that I do. Like, I can't believe what amount of restoration, what amount of subtle love, what I do can do for me when I also give myself to it. But that is one of the ways that I replug in, take a chance
Yeah.
and listen in, let myself have my emotions. And then guess what? I got to dust it off because I got to go cook that turkey pasta for my son.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like aside from milk products, the other stuff that is in my side little box that I take out every night are is the Courgeous ball and the yoga tune-up balls, which are part of also the Roma. Exactly. It's like a pacifier for me. I mean, there are days where I feel like so right at the edge of my tolerance. There's 25 things I'm doing in one day. I'm working on editing something, and then I get a call. I'm like, oh, okay, I could go do that. Oh, I got to go over here. And like, I just feel like I'm being pulled in every direction. And how I shut it down at the end of the night is about 2 hours before I go to bed. I pull out these tools and I give back to myself. And at the end, I go, thank God somebody came up with these tools and these ideas, because I feel like a new person.
Like,
I can sleep.
I'm praising you, you're praising me, I'm praising myself, you're praising yourself. Like, girl, we're on to something. Like, we really
Yes.
do have a good thing, and we have something that's so beneficial. I remember it was Mother's Day. I walked downstairs. My husband, God bless him, he had picked some flowers and he had set up my coffee station, like, so it was easier for me to make coffee. He had all the cards from all the kids set up. And I'm like, oh, this is wonderful. This is great. And I go and I sit down on the toilet and I get this twing in my back where it's like, I can't even breathe. And I was like, no, my Mother's Day is going to be ruined because I just out of nowhere got a back spasm. So I finish up in the bathroom. I get down on the floor and I know what I know. I know how to use my tools. I know my body. I don't fear pain because I know how to work with it. And 30 minutes later, maybe less than 30 minutes, that spasm was down to maybe 10% of the discomfort. I was like, no problem. And I was able to actually work out. When I worked out, that reduced it to another 4%. And it's like, no problem. But usually that type of a spasm would be a 2-week spasm.
Oh, yeah.
In my life. But like, I'm so blessed to have the education that I've had from the pioneers and the anatomy studies I've done, the trainings, and then my own exploration with my tools to be able to knock this miserable spasm out within minutes. And so that is the gift that this work can do to empower any individual, whether that was because of my hypermobility and the estrogen roller coaster that I'm on, or who knows what, or from lifting boxes from the move, God knows what. But I know I can take control of my own tissue and mental health in those types of instances. And uh, that's the type of service I want other people to have at their own fingertips.
Yeah, I mean, it's so huge. And, big shout out to your husband, Robert, who I think it's just so great when you actually have a collaborative team and really working to grow a brand, a business, because it is a tireless It's tireless to be able to do it. It takes an incredible,
We don't know
incredible
how
amount
you
of
do
time.
it. We always talk about, we're like,
I don't know how
how
I
do
do
you
it. I
do
mean,
it?
because I have a great team. Big shout out to my team who do a ton of the work behind the scenes because I could not do all of that by myself. This would have not gone as far as it did without these guys here. But I also want to talk about the other book, The Role Model, because the tune-up balls, these other balls that you have, yeah, I love them. I use them with the half roller quite frequently, and I just find them an asset. And so talk a little bit about what somebody would learn in that book compared to what they would learn in Body by Breath. I mean, there's a ton of crossover and magic, but yeah, talk a little bit about that book.
Yeah, body by breath. If I had to say like a one word theme, is way more about interoception, the body's sense of its physiological self, and then how you can work with and alter that, which that goes into pain, that goes into respiration, that goes into to a lot of different very subtle experiences of one's body and being. The role model is, I would say, more proprioceptively driven. It's much more about structure and movement and mobility. And it was written in 2014. It was written to the extent of where self-myofascial release research was back then, which is, 200 papers less at that point in time. Good grief. So I did my best with trying to make leaps, and luckily the premises that I went with have been validated at this point in time. Meaning, soft is supreme, and the type of stimulation that we do really does help with body sense and adjusting pain. But role model is much more going to help you with your foot and your knee and your hip and your neck, and it's talking more about structure. And there's also a lot of anecdotes and role models, so there are a lot of stories of people who've used the therapy balls for their own health and healing of different accidents, injuries, or disease states.
Mhm.
And body by breath, honestly, we had just as many anecdotes. People had sent me stories over the years about how this worked for them, but it would have been 1,000 page book versus 430. And when I was about a year and a half out from publishing, they literally chucked out almost 500 pages of manuscript, and that was mostly the anecdotes, because they're like, you know what, you don't need it. And so we kept 3 small things in there. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, writing a book, for anybody thinking about writing a book, all I can say is you need to lock yourself in a room, turn off every device, and just write. It is an exhausting task, but if you have a passion and a purpose and you really have a message, writing a book is, again, a tireless task, but it's, I think, important when you have something to say is to put it on paper. And you're saying a lot here. The fascial research and science has emerged over the past 25 years far more than it has ever been, simply because technology is there. And now with AlphaFold and understanding how to decode a protein, we're only at the beginning of where I think fascial research will go. Well, where do you see fascia research in the future? What kind of excites you about what's going to happen, or what do you think will happen? What direction do you think fascia will take?
Wow. Well, I really hope, look, I know there's a lot of competing ideas amongst researchers, and there can be some friction around definitions. And it's really important for us to have a consensus around a definition. Um, I love the new paper by Carla and Robert and Neil and Lori. So that has been, I've read and reread that paper. I made a talk on it for my yoga tune-up teacher team to try to understand it even more, where they're coming from. And so I do think that it's the future really needs to aim towards some clarity so that we can translate across different medical professions, clinical professions, in a seamless way. It would be really nice to be taken more seriously by more groups within the greater physical fitness and training space and the athletic space. I mean, there are definitely people who have been, it's just so silly, they have been convinced, like, it's like, well, the science is there, like, what, it's like, I feel like there is a very strange battle of truth that is confusing for consumers, and it's confusing for coaches, and it's exhausting for folks like you and me who sit there and read through the papers, talk to the researchers, try to understand complexities that we were never schooled on.
Yeah.
So that's exhausting. I'd really like to see that mellow, and for there to be more consensus around the benefits of fascia treatment approaches as very important for all the things, for pain reduction, movement improvements, physical fitness, athletic performance, all of that. I need, and then of course, then there's the beauty industry, which that's important too, because that's just a huge moneymaker. It's not my space, but these things are all interrelated. And so fascia is very, very complex. And that's an unfortunate thing because it touches every aspect of body and being. So it's up to people like you and me who aren't afraid to talk out loud and talk to general population and simplify, make it accessible. So the future, I think, is better communication, but we need to know what we're communicating. And so the researchers also need to find their way through so that we can support and not, it's not like we're being disloyal by sharing somebody else's theory.
Yeah, I think that because we're seeing fascia on a microscopic level, I think the big problem here is that there is different molecular conversations when you're talking about a quantum scale substance. And I think we jump too fast from this quantum state to macro concepts like tight shoulders or joints that are compressed. And so that I think is the problem, and why some people are so kind of still against or in disbelief that fascia is important. And excuse me, I sort of think of it like it's like any new thing. If it becomes the panacea, that's where, it's like everything is the fascia, fascia rules everything. I'm like, you have to put something in front of fascia. Is it neurofascia? Is it the visceral fascia? Is it the superficial fascia? Like, what fascia are you talking about? And I think that comes, with a responsibility from people who are understanding fascia to really understand it and to not make assumptions before there's actually something that you can link a little research to. And I don't think that you need research. People are like, why don't you have 25 research papers? I'm like, look, I don't need research to tell me I feel better after I melt, or you know what I mean? So there's a fine divide, but I do think that we need to be careful when you have new science that you're proposing where science is going, and then having the open discussions and having the conversations and not turning a blind eye. And most often when somebody comes back to me saying, I don't believe in anything with the fascia, this, that, and the other thing, and I ask them, what research paper are you reading? The fact is they have read zero. They are making an assumption about something they saw on social media, which we all know there's so much bullshit and lies out there. You cannot believe half of what you're listening to.
My
So
favorite
please.
Instagram, my favorite medical journal.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we can't learn only from social media. Every once in a while, it would be nice for people to read books. I think that people are not reading like we used to. And I think it's important to actually read a physical book, not a tablet, not just an Audible, but actually spend time reading. I think that it opens up aspects of our own neural correlates that for many of us has long since closed. And I think it's important that we spend time reading research papers, at least if you really want to know about the inner workings of the human body. I think it's important that practitioners actually read research. So I'm totally with you on that. So let's also talk any advice, like, because we're talking about these practitioners, what advice for those looking to deepen their understanding of fascia, what would be your advice to learning more about it, aside from going on social media?
Oh, besides studying with you or me?
Yeah, like what else? Like where else
Or
can they
Tom
learn
or
about fascia?
Tom or
Yeah,
Gil or Rochelle or read David's books. My goodness. Yeah. So I'll give shout outs to all those people. So, Tom Myers is a wonderful educator. Gil Headley,
brilliant,
wonderful educator. I love what Rochelle and Nicole are doing with Anatomy Scapes. You
amazing.
can listen to our friend David Lazondek's podcast if you don't want to read anything, because he has had so many different researchers on to present. Um, their work there, and of course his easy, I think, easy to read book, Fascia, What It Is and Why It Matters. If
Yeah,
you really want density, you should take a look at the compendium, Fascia Function Medical Applications. I wrote a chapter in the first and second edition on self-myofascial release. It's a narrative review on tools and the benefits. So like those are great, and honestly my chapter is very readable because I'm not a scientist. I'm an enthusiast. So those are some places that people can tap into just off the top of my head. But I've got hundreds and hundreds of other resources. If I just open my cabinet back there, I love, oh my God, just spend days gazing at the work of Carla Stecco, her book
yeah.
on fascial anatomy. I love Andrzej Palat's work, and his book is just another one that just takes me into a whole other realm. He's in Spain, the work of both the Steccos at Fascia Manipulation Institute. So you can easily find Carla's brother Antonio has done a number of different podcasts, and he's one of the worldwide experts on hyaluronan. So learn about the fluid that is your slick substance throughout your fascial system. I think it's very important to pay attention to the fluids of our fascial body. Where else can people start? But of course, I try to make it very accessible and digestible in my courses and trainings. And so my role model method training takes you into the science of self-myofascial release. And we do that as a 2-day online event. We also teach that live around the world. I'll be teaching that in London in September 19th and 20th. No, September 20th and 21st. And I'll be teaching, Body by Breath as well is another experiential fascial deep dive, although we don't go into the properties and mechanics of fascia in a really heavy scientific way in that course. But the book has 2 different chapters on fascia. And so I think that's a great place to go. If you want to learn about fascia and sensing, especially fascia in the autonomic nervous system, I think that's a really great place for people to go. And then if they really want to take a deep dive, Sue, they can join us at the Fascia Research Congress, right? In
Yes.
August in New Orleans. It's my hometown. I am so excited to eat red beans and rice and have people connect to their different fascial interfaces regarding breathing.
Yes, indeed. I think it's going to be really the best Congress yet. I think you're going to learn so much if you have even an inkling of curiosity about fascia. Coming and immersing yourself for 4 days with us, I think it's going to be transformative for so many people. A lot of pre-cons. They're even doing a dissection. I think the Fascia Congress is really going to be the best yet. So I'm super excited to be there with you. So Jill, on Anatomical Gangster, I ask everybody the same question at the end. So I'm going to pose this one to you. If you could tell somebody a life lesson that you have learned, and maybe you're talking to a young person, who's having a hard time in life, there's something that's going on. If you could tell somebody something that you've learned that really transformed how you saw the human experience, and if they learned about it, it might very well change the course of their life, what would it be?
Embody your body. Nobody else can be your body for you, can fix your body for you. Embody your body.
Simple and easy. Well, Jill, it is always a pleasure to hang out with you. You are just an incredible dynamic force, and I just love you so much. Thank you again so much for coming on Anatomical Gangster and hanging out with me. For those of you listening, I hope that you enjoyed this podcast, and please share this one with your friends. If this is the first time you've met Jill, go find her. Go to where is the email, or I mean the website that
Yeah,
people can.
I don't think I mentioned my company. Tune Up Fitness is the company that my husband and I started that supports all of the work that we do. And obviously, it's a website, but I also teach classes on there. And I have mentor programs. So there's ways to interface with me. Like immediately you can get in there and we can be engaged in learning as well as Q&A and moving you through fascial concepts, movement concepts, breath work in a way that's dynamic and worldwide. We have students all over the world that come together and do this work together.
Yeah, so go check her out at Tune Up Fitness. And again, I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. Please subscribe, share this with your friends, comment. It lets me know somebody is listening out there. And I look forward to seeing you guys all next week with another innovator who is transforming our health and well-being. Until then, stay healthy, stay well, and stay gangster. We'll see you soon.